Okay, I think a good place to start is that, whenever I tell people that I'm in like a meditation club or like I want to do meditation, is my profession. Like I want to teach meditation and like research or whatever.
Yeah.
And like they're kind of like on the fence.
Yeah.
Where, I've always wanted to meditate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I've never really gotten to it. And then, so I just thought, talking about it would kind of, you talk about like how it's like helped you. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you never told me how you started. Like, it's just like the Spirit Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way that I started, my dad's been practicing for 12 years-ish.
Okay.
And so it was always around, starting from when I was about 9 or 10. He would meditate and actually put Dharma talks on while I was falling asleep. So I would fall asleep to Dharma talks.
Okay.
So I'm practically brainwashed, is what I'm telling you. But I was introduced to it as like at a pretty young age, and my dad was very, he didn't ever force it on me, but it was just something that I could observe that he was doing with his own time. And I didn't feel like it was overbearing at all, but I thought it was interesting. It was kind of like intriguing. Like, what is he doing, What is this about? And so I always had it at the back of my mind, and I learned through him some Buddhist concepts over the years, so I had kind of some sense of the philosophy before I started practicing, which was kind of helpful in like having an orientation toward what meditation is about before I decided to pick it up on my own.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I went through, a period of a lot of anxiety, gearing up towards college, and also a feeling of alienation and isolation from people around me, like my friends and the people I was surrounded by weren't very supportive. They also didn't share a lot of the same values as, at least the values that I aspired, that I wanted for myself in a way. And I felt like I wasn't behaving in line with my values because of that. Like I was sort of fitting into this peer mold that didn't feel real. And I could hear myself and kind of see myself doing things that I thought were not coming from a kind-spirited place, not coming from a centered place. And
like these values were like Buddhist based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I wanted, I could sense that there was something off, and it was like really hard to put my finger on, but there was this dissatisfaction with just everything about both my like internal life and my external life, that like my relationships, that it just something felt like it was missing a little bit. And then I really started to then explore, I got interested in my mind and kind of consciousness through also exploring psychedelics for a while and experimenting with that. And through that, I started to pick up the practice more and more, and attend a regular Sunday Sangha, and I got in touch with a teacher and started doing meditation intensives and retreats, and then got very kind of into it through that way, and it became the central like thing in my life, and eventually also I wanted to pursue a career that was adjacent or in some way related to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did your dad pick it up then?
My dad picked it up, well, he similarly had gone through phases of self-inquiry when he was younger that were pretty parallel to what like I later experienced. And he had been searching for a long time and had gone through a lot of inner work through therapy and through other means, and eventually he felt that some of the therapeutic process he had gone through was not enough, like CBT and psychodynamic therapy. He felt that they were helpful in a lot of ways, but something was incomplete. Like he didn't feel. I guess there was a sense of that those forms of inner work were not addressing something more fundamental about our experience or what it is to be human. And he encountered the practice kind of just through listening to these podcasts, and got into it really gradually over a pretty long period of time, but eventually, there was a momentum to it, and it became more and more of a serious thing for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Kind of, I feel like my experience is also similar to your dad's, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I started out with, I was like desperate, so I didn't want to see a psychiatrist or a therapist. It's like not as open in Singapore. Right?
Yeah.
I think we talked about that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I was taking like a psych class.
Yeah.
And then my teacher was talking about like Prozac and like antidepressants, and I'm like, oh wow, that's like the first I've heard of it.
Right.
And then like, I stayed back after class, and I'm like, where can I get some?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh you should see a doctor or something if you're like having issues. Yeah. And then later on, like I also asked my teacher to like hypnotize me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then he's like, I could, but like it probably won't help like on the long term. So
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna do it. And like, oh shit, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did CBT, and then I got like antidepressant prescriptions,
Yeah.
which helped.
Mm-hmm.
It helped to stabilize, but like it didn't get rid of all the depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you feel dissatisfied with that for some amount of time before
Actually,
finding?
no.
Yeah.
No. I thought that was like the best that I could do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then in the army, I was just like at that kind of plateau
Yeah.
where it's like kind of okay, like not as bad as like high school, but
Yeah.
like not like fantastic either.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a lot of like drinking and like
Yeah.
smoking. Yeah, I mean like I got by like by just getting drunk every week.
Yeah.
On the weekends.
Like kind of looking forward to it, and then like that was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
something
yeah.
that keeps you going. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my dad actually, he's friends with this spiritual healer in Bali.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who actually happens to be, he used to be the backup singer of Stevie Wonder.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, I thought you'd
So
like
cool.
that. 'Cause, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, don't quote me on that. but
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere along those lines. Yeah.
Damn.
He said he went to this retreat in Bali.
Yeah.
And my dad suggested that I go. And I was like, nah.
Yeah. You were reluctant. You didn't buy into it at first, or
Yeah, for sure, no. For sure.
did it sound woo woo or kind of like
Very.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
I was very skeptical of like religious and spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I used to be, I grew up Christian, and then I just like kind of dropped it.
Yeah. How regular was Christianity a part of your life? Did you go to church regularly, or?
No, not regularly.
Yeah.
But I've been to church a few
Yeah.
times. Yeah. And like I went to a Catholic school
Yeah.
from my entire time in Singapore was a Catholic. 3 different Catholic schools, like it's the same name, but like it's different like levels, like elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always been like I always knew about it, but like, I was never like the most like staunch Christian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my friends made fun of me for being like a Christian who never went to church. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had friends who were like a little more dedicated or kind of into it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually the norm to like go to church every day for like Christians and Catholics. I mean, sorry, not every day, every week.
Yeah. Every day. That's like
Every week.
That's intense. Yeah.
So like I was like not
Yeah.
the normal Christian. But anyway, it started like slipping
Yeah.
through high school after depression. But yeah, in the army, it was just one of those times, like just getting drunk every weekend.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, sometime I have to like stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because at the time, like I was trying to get bigger. So I went to the gym every day. I ate like mass gainers. Like
Wow.
after eating like
Yeah.
a giant bowl full of pasta, I'll drink like 1,500 calories of mass gainer.
Wow.
And like try not to throw up every day.
Yeah. So then you were going hard, man. Damn.
I was going really hard.
Yeah.
Because like I've always been skinny, and like,
Yeah.
it's just something I wanted to change.
Yeah, you were working out a lot and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And then it felt good to make that change.
Yeah.
Like for once, I'm doing something. Because I was like also a shitty student as well. Yeah.
Was school like not super compelling in a lot of ways? Or
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I went to school. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I just like did what I could to pass,
Mm-hmm.
and then like yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's also an ego thing where I would be scared to try my best,
Mm-hmm.
because if I tried my best and I still didn't do as well as my friends, I would be like, oh shit, I'm so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my way around it was like I wouldn't try,
Yeah.
and like tell myself that I have the potential to be
Yeah.
like the best in class.
Right.
Like I don't do it because I didn't study.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm smarter than everyone else.
Hey, no, yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible, but it's the way it was.
I mean,
yeah.
that's a lot of self-awareness to have about it in retrospect. I feel like a lot of people would, just go with that.
I mean, yeah, thanks to meditation,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Ever since like I started gymming, I was like, I should do more stuff.
Yeah.
So I went to, I finally signed up for this retreat. I put it off for like months.
Mm.
Yeah, and that was also the time where they had like a music festival in Bali
Yeah.
that my friends were gonna go to.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not going. I got a meditation retreat. And then they were like, are you
They're
joking
like,
or what?
Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never told you about this retreat because
Yeah.
I was saving it for this podcast.
Yeah.
It's actually like, it's Vipassana style.
Mm-hmm.
Like mindfulness based, loving kindness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a mix.
Yeah.
And then instead of 10 days, it's 7 days. Vipassana is usually 10, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah, the Vipassana, like the Goenka style Vipassana,
Mm.
where it's like, I've never actually done that, but my friend Mike has done a traditional Vipassana retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Was it a little bit like in that
Yeah.
vein?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But the main thing for this retreat that made it special was it was branded like as a health meditation retreat.
Yeah.
So it was health meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't really just focus on like mental illnesses or
Yeah.
issues, physical issues as well. Like they treated. So like the teacher, he says that, okay, this is like anecdotal, of
Yeah.
course. He says that he was always able to like kind of tell if someone had an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would go around and be like, oh, that guy has a liver problem, that guy has
Yeah.
a stomach problem,
Yeah.
that guy has cancer, stuff like that.
Wow.
And then, so I forgot how he developed this technique, but
Wow.
it's based on like mindfulness.
Yeah.
Like, wherever the issue was centered at,
Yeah.
you just like be mindful
Mm-hmm.
towards like that specific area, and then you apply mindfulness, objectivity, loving kindness,
Yeah.
and then you just keep at it, and then it will heal.
Mm.
At first, I was like,
Wow.
what the hell?
Damn. Yeah.
I mean, he said that he's helped people who they were like they couldn't have kids, like
Yeah.
this couple,
Yeah.
and then they went to the retreat,
Yeah.
and then they could have kids.
Yeah. Wow.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very interesting. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
So like the first 3 days, they were boring.
Mhm.
I wanted to leave, bro.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave. I was like, I didn't have my phone, we
Yeah.
couldn't talk to anyone.
Right.
And like the food was not to my liking. I'm pretty picky.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was vegetarian.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't eat any vegetarian food at all. I barely
Mhm.
ate veggies.
Yeah.
Like maybe like the mushrooms on my burger.
Yeah.
Or like
Right.
my pasta, that's about
The
it.
extra veggies on the burger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Things have changed, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I barely ate actually.
Yeah.
I had like 2 bananas for dinner sometimes because like
Wow.
I looked at the food and like, no, I'm good.
Yeah. So you're fasting as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's extra. Yeah.
But anyway, 3 days were painful.
Yeah.
On the 3rd day, that was like when things got
Mm.
really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like the case with most retreats as well, I've heard.
Yeah. No, that resonates a lot with my own experience with
Yeah.
retreats too. Yeah. Yeah, first couple of days are brutal. Yeah. Entry period is tough. Yeah.
Even when even like not on your first retreat?
Yeah, I mean, even just, yeah, and even, I mean, I feel like retreat is always tough for me, if I'm going to be honest,
Okay.
It's, because I experience a lot of fear sometimes about being alone, and I think there's a way in which either through relationships and talking with people or through devices and and media, we're able to distract ourselves from our own deep loneliness and like dissatisfaction, which is like actually super pervasively, like, at least I can only speak for myself because I'm the only person I get like first person POV on. But certainly like the first couple of days that all comes up, and then there's also all this restlessness and boredom and stuff like that too. And so it takes a few days to really like settle in. It's like, oh, I'm on retreat now, I can relax around that. But it takes a while, and even then it doesn't always completely go away. It's like an ongoing challenge.
Right, that's interesting. Because I've only been on this one retreat.
Yeah.
And then I was always thinking that the hard part was like over, because like it was those first few days where I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was just like, my mind was noisy, and like I was frustrated at myself for not being able to quiet my mind.
Yeah.
But like I thought that once I got over that period, like now I would be okay if I went back to a retreat.
Yeah.
But you don't think so? You think like you still need to like settle in, even?
Who knows? We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how you respond. I can only know how it's been for me. But then again, it's like there are people who've gone on a lot more retreats than I have. So I think when I talked to my teacher Will about this, and he said that that stuff is really common and it comes up for many years, and then if you're really, really experienced, maybe if you've been going on long retreats for many years or decades, maybe it isn't as salient anymore. Like, you do come to, I think there is at least a relative level of peace that you can come to around it, but but that's the really big picture, I'm still quite young,
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, so carrying on like after the 3 days. So each of us had this one-to-one interview with the guru, the teacher. And okay, so like he had my particulars.
Yeah.
So like it said on the form that I had depression, that I was allergic to gluten and stuff like that. But like supposedly he was able to sense these things, right? But,
Yeah.
like, I guess he needed his particulars, so like I couldn't like tell if he actually could sense that I had these things.
Yeah.
So I first saw him. He was like, "Okay, let's see how you meditate." And I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure." So I just like I did my thing, and then for like 15-20 seconds, he said, "Okay, your loving kindness is there, I can tell, but your mindfulness is not there. You're scattered all over." And like that was true.
Yeah.
That was true. That was at the time when I was sitting like at the retreat, but like I wasn't like actually meditating. It was just all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like curious as to like how he was able to tell.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, again, who knows?
Yeah.
Gotta be a bit skeptical about these things, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Healthy skepticism.
I always try and go for the healthy skepticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so he also said, he looked at my, he said, "Oh, you have depression and this gluten intolerance." And then, so he said, for your depression, you have to be mindful of your heart.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've heard of this. So, because like it's an emotional issue, it's centered in the heart, and then you kind of cultivate like your, what is this chakra called? The green one.
I'm not too versed in the chakras, but
okay, got you. It's like the middle chakra.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of use that energy and like you be mindful to your heart.
Yeah.
And like apply loving kindness to it. And then he said like you will feel like discomfort.
Yeah.
but you just keep on observing it and accepting the discomfort.
Yeah.
And then you'll be okay. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? And he also said about my gluten intolerance.
Yeah.
I should meditate on like my thymus gland over here.
Wow.
Because the thymus gland is supposedly linked to like immunity.
Yeah.
I was like, no, this guy is like talking nonsense.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no way. I didn't even
Yeah.
come here to like fix my
Yeah.
gluten intolerance. I just
Yeah.
came here to like, maybe quieten my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
And like this guy is saying like my depression and my gluten intolerance can be gone. It's like,
Yeah.
I was like, no way. But I carried on anyway. And like why the next few days were more engaging is because when I started to get a grasp on my heart,
Yeah.
it actually hurt like a lot. It was like something sharp was like inside of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you felt that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it was very strange because like when I'm meditating, I'm focusing on my heart. I could feel the pain. If I just stopped and I opened my eyes, it would be gone.
Yeah.
I was like,
Wow.
yeah. So it's very, very interesting.
That is really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I carried on with it, and then maybe it was like the 4th or 5th day, I started to get like flashbacks or insights, I guess. Part of it was, so I had this flashback of like my brother and my family friend at the time, who's now my god brother. He's at Stanford now.
Yeah.
Doing masters. So like they were older. They were 2 years older than me, and I was like the third wheel, like everywhere we went.
Yeah.
So like to me, this like the family friend of ours, like he was like my best friend.
Yeah.
But like to him, like my brother was his best friend. So I was like always
Whoa.
like kind of left out.
Yeah.
And then there was this one time, we were just playing, and then my friend like kicked me in the stomach or something.
Oh.
And then it just made me feel very, very unwanted.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it was like, we were just playing, right? It just happened to be, that kick just happened to be pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he started just like carrying on with like his own friends, and like, I was just like there.
That hurts.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. And then I realized that because of this, maybe I would have, I always had this need to seek like external validation from other people. Yeah, which is why like I tried so hard to convince myself that I was smarter than everyone else.
Yeah.
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 And like I think that this is like the core to like why I had depression, because there were some failures that I went through in high school that made me feel like I was not as good as my friends.
Yeah.
And that was when, okay, shit. I'm
Yeah,
worthless.
right.
Yeah.
And the narrative breaks down, and then you just come upon the fear and the sadness and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can super relate to that.
Yeah.
That feels in a lot of ways parallel to my experience in coming to the practice, and
Yeah.
like I think, yeah, and I had in my own way kind of built up this very intense identity structure around actually, being like kind of like thinking of myself as like really intelligent or like super smart, and just like thinking really highly of myself in some ways, but out of a fear and insecurity of like the fact that I wasn't socially embraced. I had a lot of experiences of social rejection.
Okay.
Pretty young too, just not like feeling very included at all, and maybe outright kind of made fun of and outcasted, and and so my way of coping with that was to really become hyper isolated in some ways, and like get very focused on like certain skills and going very deeply into certain very solo kind of pursuits, which in a lot of ways was a positive thing. Like I learned a lot that way, and like it was rewarding in a lot of ways, but it also came along with this whole life philosophy of closed-mindedness, of thinking that I had it all figured out and other people didn't, because that's a good coping mechanism when you feel insecure about, a lot of, more socially mainstream or socially accepted ways of behaving. If you feel like you can't be compatible with that, you can't be embraced by the kind of, whatever the popular kids at school, or what have you. It's a good coping mechanism, adaptive coping mechanism, not really a good coping mechanism, to like then create some way of thinking of yourself that allows you to feel okay, and that's what happened in some ways, like a way of adapting to that. But it became more and more maladaptive as I got older, because it was just every time that it took so much work to keep it up, and I had to be proving myself all the time, and proving myself to my friends who were kind of also in the same boat, like really trying to be, super academic, super like, there's just like no end to it, and it's almost like, that kind of bro-y culture in sports, but like the intellectual equivalent where you're just trying to one-up people, and, it's super kind of, honestly, kind of pretentious way of acting, a kind of cold, detached, alienated way of being with people, like not emotionally grounded, not connected, and sort of there was a moment when that all shattered, partially for me starting to observe it in my friends and seeing like, oh, I don't want to be like that, like I don't like the way they're acting, I don't like the way I'm acting, and then also, so once I kind of stopped believing in that grand narrative that I had created, it was like lots of feelings of deep sadness and anxiety and, kind of confusion and disorientation that I went through, and kind of like lost my way for a little bit, like where I didn't have a clear sense of orientation or ground in anything. And the practice became like really what I took refuge in at that time, and I'm so grateful that like that was something that appeared for me, because otherwise it would have been really difficult to deal with that.
I would have never have guessed that you went through like all of that. I was actually I was at the Ahyun like the other day. And then like I was just telling her like, oh yeah, I was like not having the greatest like day like the day before, and then she was telling me like how she handled like her like bad days, and she mentioned like, oh yeah, but like Sage, whenever I see Sage, like he's never upset or he's never angry. So that is kind of weird. I mean, like to an extent, like I kind of get that vibe as well. Like what you described. I don't see that in you now. Like I think you're super open to people. I wouldn't never have expected that you were, you close yourself off to others. It's
really it's interesting how different of a place, it's felt like, some of it was the practice and some of it was other things, like even not too long ago, like over, the pandemic even, or, my freshman year, the way that I was practicing was very sort of internally focused, and like and honestly, living in a co-op has been really big for me. Like I felt like I think there's something about having a really warm community available to you that can be super healing, almost like a form of therapy, when you really find friends who are like good friends. And I think I hadn't found that before, and that was super, it just put me at ease in a lot of ways. So I think some of it is also newer, and it's not even like the practice that's allowed me to open up a little more, because there were periods for me where the practice actually became a way of closing myself off too, because how with mindfulness you can become super hyper like focused on your own behavior and your own thoughts, and I got very self-regulated, where it was like I thought, in order to be a good person I have to always be listening to people and never say anything, and always have to be thinking wholesome thoughts, a little like when were you there when we talked about sort of like somebody in the group was talking about the practice of replacing unwholesome thoughts with wholesome thoughts. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe,
I think it was, yeah.
You recall that?
Yeah.
I was kind of practicing in that way, and it
Okay.
became this very hyper self-regulated way
Right,
of doing
yeah.
it. And I feel like now my practice is very different than that, where it's very light. Like, it's not that effortful. Like, in terms of like the amount of that I'm like the amount of scrutiny that I have over myself, or it's like I feel like there's a way of attending to experience that's like very kind of light and gentle. And it took a long time for me to settle into that. For a long time, it was like I didn't know how much, attention to put. I kind of put too much in, kind of like went overdrive, and it was like this delicate balancing act of finding the kind of, they talk about strings on a guitar, like you can turn them too tight or too loose.
Yeah, there's a sutra about that. The Vinaya Sutra, I think.
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was like that. It's like I was super sharp for a long time, like super overly, kind of tight, in the way that I practiced too.
Okay. So the way you approach like social situations now, would you say like you attribute it to like your practice, like this light practice?
In I think it's like a combination of both the practice and also like having a warm kind of community that I can that I can feel. I think a sense of belonging is so important, like a sense of community. I think that's one of our deepest human needs. And for a long time I felt that was a missing link for me a little bit, like kind of disconnect from people. Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. For me it was kind of like a bit of the opposite. Like I used to have a lot more friends like back in the day. I never had issues like making friends.
Yeah.
Which is strange to me because like I was a bit of a dickhead. I mean, like, I was like the quiet guy. So like if I talk shit about someone, I wouldn't get called out for it because I would do it with people who I kind of trusted.
You'd be strategic.
Yeah. But like if I was like not too reserved, I would be seen like as a complete dickhead for sure. Yeah, I was pretty lucky that I had as many friends as I did. Yeah, but I mean anyway.
I really super don't see that in you now at all. You seem like the most like humble, chill, grounded dude.
I don't know, man. I think I've improved. Like I'm happy with what I've achieved, like in a personal sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, back to the retreat. Like, I mean, I had like a couple more insights, but long story short, my depression kind of went away.
Wow.
But I had to take my meds though.
Yeah.
If I didn't take my meds, that'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, usually before the retreat, like maybe once a week, I just have like random bouts of like sadness. I feel like, I'm worthless, or everything's pointless. And I just like cry for the night, and then next day it's like, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But after the meditation retreat,
wow,
it's gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like an extremely cathartic like experience.
Oh yeah.
To have that
sure.
profound, that deep of an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, my gluten intolerance also improved.
Damn.
If I meditated.
Wow. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So okay, there was one time in what was this, middle school, 8th grade.
Yeah.
I was going for like this colonoscopy, but I had to eat gluten like for 1 week straight to like see if like my intestines could like digest it properly. On the 3rd day, I almost passed out because I couldn't take it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like having diarrhea, and like it's like constipated diarrhea.
Yeah.
So it's like super painful, but like it can't come out.
Yeah.
So like I just like almost passed out.
Oh my god, that sounds crazy.
Yeah. And then after this, I'd be like I can eat gluten like from time to time
Yeah.
if I meditate.
Wow.
I went to Japan actually, and Japan is like not a gluten-free place.
Yeah. Yeah. Not exactly.
Yeah, I ate ramen.
Yeah.
I still brought my gluten-free soy sauce, like, to mitigate the impacts, but
Yeah.
it's not a gluten-free place, and like
Mm.
I only had diarrhea like once or twice. I survived.
Wow.
It's all
Damn.
good.
Meditation, the cure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
It's
insane.
crazy.
Yeah.
So in community college, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have many friends, and I didn't do much other than school, which is also not much.
Yeah.
In community college.
Right. Yeah. Relatively light.
It's super light, man.
Yeah.
It was like my 7th or 8th grade like workload.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so my first semester I spent a lot of time bored, but like my second semester I started to delve more into like meditating.
Mm.
And at this point I was actually not yet like driven to pursue like a meditation related
Yeah.
profession.
What were you planning on going into?
I was thinking of doing research to just like find ways to improve like mental health.
Awesome.
More clinical.
So it's still psych though. Still
Yeah,
clinical
still psych.
Yeah.
Still psych. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I for some reason it didn't hit me that I should just do meditation.
Yeah.
Because it changed my life. But
Mm.
anyway, like I was just meditating quite a lot at the time, and there was a point where it was just so strange because
Yeah.
I was like, I just realized that, it's been like 2 months and I've just been feeling so good. And it's so weird.
Yeah.
At first I was like, oh shit, I have bipolar depression now.
Like, what is this, mania? There's gotta be something
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't really match with mania, because, well, for one thing, I
Right.
was very functional.
Right, yeah, you're not like psychotic.
And it was the most insane experience ever.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's not just like my well-being. It
Yeah.
was, I felt more connected to everyone around me.
Yeah.
I felt like I understood more about like existence,
Yeah.
like God,
Right.
the reconciliation between like religion and science.
Yeah, like understanding and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding that they're not necessarily like contradictory to one another,
Yeah.
or like even the religions to one another. But like that's another thing.
Right. No. Yeah. I can relate. Yeah.
And then there was also like, it was just peace in my mind. I could just like lie down on the couch or like on the floor, just like stare at a tree for an hour.
Right. Yeah. Just that kind of deep contentment. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I just wasn't bothered by anything.
Yeah.
Like even, like asshole drivers. Usually I'd be like, oh, this dickhead.
Yeah.
But now I was just like laughing in my car because like
Yeah.
I was thinking, I would have just gotten like so angry at that guy, but
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous how people would get angry at something so trivial, right? So I was like laughing, and then I started like crying because like it's just so funny to me.
Wow. You're
was
having,
very
like,
strange
an
period.
ecstatic experience while on the road.
Yeah.
in, like shitty traffic.
It wasn't just on the road; it was like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. No. Right.
Which is like,
yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't taking any drugs or anything.
Right. Yeah. No. But it can. Did you feel like, you noticed more details and things? Like if you're walking around, did you like kind of notice the trees more? Or like
I would
the
appreciate things
environment
like trees more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've been always quite blur.
Yeah.
Like if I would not notice like that there's like a box of like rice like left.
Oh yeah, I guess I don't mean in that way, but more like in like a
Oh, yeah,
spacious
yeah, yeah.
kind of way of like like, oh, you know, how beautiful, like,
Yeah, you start to
everything
appreciate
is,
everything more.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That super resonates with uh, my experience with like the first phases of my practice. Like,
Yeah?
yeah, like I had, I mean, I started with, also it's hard to say what was what because I experimented quite a lot with psychedelics in high school.
Right.
But I did that in a way that like I was doing it also in a pretty like I'd say for the most part with, you know, pretty wholesome intentions, like really genuinely wanting to explore my own mind, and that was the reason for it, not, you know, just to get intoxicated.
Yeah, okay.
And usually like in the nature, you know. And I was doing that along with, you know, practicing. And it definitely, the psychedelic experience was definitely a doorway for me into like being open to the practice. And it felt like I immediately all of a sudden had some experience of the Buddhist concepts. Like before that, I didn't know. They were all abstract.
Yeah.
Like I had my first psychedelic experience, like all of a sudden, all of it just made sense to me, like intuitively. But then once I came down, it didn't again, you know, but I associated it with that experience. So I kept thinking, oh, I got to get back to that place where it makes sense.
I got you. Yeah.
And so I realized, you know, I can't, you know, you can't just do that through taking substances. You have to integrate it into your life. And so that was like what motivated me to practice in a regular way. And then there was a specific moment when I really connected with the practice in and of itself. And it was, I had a friend in high school who was also named Sage.
Yeah.
And we got up in the wee hours of the morning, and we would kind of do this consistently for a couple months, like get up at 3 a.m. or something and go to a park and sit and try not to move and just sit till sunrise, you know.
Like sober?
Yeah, like totally sober.
Okay.
Yeah. And one time the first time that I actually did that and I actually sat down for hours, it was like this like huge opening experience of like just like deep joy and connection and you know, absorption, and like lots of like kind of like pleasant feelings and, you know, what they call rapture maybe.
Yeah.
And it felt like a experience of like meeting God, you know. And not in a metaphysical way, but just in like a, you know, meeting your own awareness for the first time. And that was a really it was like at that moment that I knew, you know, this is like something else. I really gotta, like, this is really there's something here, you know. And so there was this whole phase of the practice after that where I was, you know, experiencing a lot of these feelings of joy and contentment, and like just a very spacious kind of place in my mind that I would sit in, you know, of just like awareness, and it would feel like a lot of things didn't matter to me as much anymore. Like things didn't carry as much weight. Everything was kind of light. And I was a little less connected with a lot of beliefs I had, like kind of almost disappeared for a while, or like concepts I wasn't as attached to them for a while. And so there was a whole phase like that. And it was also probably pretty annoying to other people for a while too. Like I got very evangelical about meditation after that. I was like, this is the answer, you know?
Yeah.
Almost naturally, you know, when something has that big of an impact on you.
Of course.
But I wasn't very sensitive to like, you know, the fact that other people are like not gonna like, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about, you know? And so I you know, I think I got a little preachy, and I also like gave up all the substances. I was like, I'm just gonna be sober all the time, you know, like gave up a lot of like, you know, watching TV, a lot of things like that to just like live like a very minimalist kind of life, you know, and not do a lot of things you'd normally associate with having fun, you know, either, like not indulging not eating dessert, kind of like, all sorts of things like that,
Yeah.
I got very, very like dogmatic and ideological for a while. And I think I probably irritated my friends. I definitely irritated my friends. But both like I can look at it back in retrospect and be like, you come to the practice and like at first you're kind of naive, but there's also something really amazing about that opening, that like initial introduction. And it's interesting that after that, the practice really took on a different flavor, and like as I practiced, it's become less and less, I don't know, about like having mystical experiences or pleasant experiences. And now it's very ordinary. It's just like me being with my ordinary mind, and
This is like the come down.
Right. It's like I came down, like, it's like I'm back on Earth now. Like, it's not like, you don't just keep soaring in the skies like that very long, burn out.
Yeah. I feel like it's pretty common, like in the tradition. Like I spoke to one of my spiritual teachers in Singapore. She said like the term is like called small enlightenment.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard of before. But especially for me, like I didn't know much about like the scriptures like before I had this experience. So this is why like it got to me like in an egoistical sense.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super dangerous. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was like in some levels like enlightened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would talk to my friends and then they're like, yeah, sounds like you're enlightened.
Yeah.
And then I remember I met Yuvraj like at campus. And then he asked me, are you like high? And it's like, no man. And then we lay on like the grass. Where was that? Like outside the library?
Glade.
The Glade, yeah.
Yeah.
Until like it was 5 minutes later and then he's like, okay, we got to study now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually wrote a book.
You wrote a book? What?
I mean, like, it's not a good book. But because like all these insights like came flooding in, right? I wrote a book.
Yeah, wow.
Because
that's awesome.
I knew that if I told my friends like all about it,
yeah,
I was gonna drive like a lot of people away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good strategy. I should have picked up that one. I just took the other route.
But I tried to talk to people anyway.
Yeah.
I just didn't force it. Like, you have to meditate. Like, this is the thing. I was just like, I'm just feeling like so good. It's indescribable because of meditation. And then like I just like stop it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if they ask me how I'm feeling some more, like I just explain some more. But
yeah,
I would never like say you should learn meditation. Like, let's go. I'm gonna teach you meditation.
Well, that's good. So you always had that self-awareness about it. Yeah.
I feel like it's because coming from someone who is so skeptical about spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
If I was on the other side, there's no way in hell like I'm gonna listen to someone who tells me that they're experiencing some like bliss for 2 months. Like, nah, this guy's just lying.
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah,
exactly. And then like I was like super excited to share with my friends and my family about like, you know, the meaning of life.
Yeah, right.
But also, I guess there was some part of me that was still looking for validation. I wanted people to know like, wow, you've really made it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because like I was like in a shitty place before.
Yeah.
The contrast is like
transformed. Yeah.
And then I met up with my friends. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so ready.
Yeah.
To like, you know, show everyone that.
Yeah.
Like everyone can like find peace with themselves. That you don't need like external things to make you happy.
Right.
Stuff like that. And then I meet my friends, the first outing, and then I'm just like quiet like the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, I so relate to that.
And that's how it was for a lot of my time in Singapore. I just felt estranged.
Yeah.
Even though like I cared more for people, I feel I couldn't really engage in the same conversations that I used to.
Right. Yeah. I super relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like, yeah. I mean, I can relate everything you're describing to my experience too. Yeah. There was a period where exactly that. It was, you know how they talk about like ultimate and relative truth or ultimate and relative reality, like it was like I was just, my headspace was totally in the ultimate. It was like, you know, nothing matters. You know, ultimately, like happiness can exist independent of conditions. Like, I went through a phase where I wouldn't talk about my personal issues because or you know, the things that even were happening to me in my life, because I'm like, I just want to be content independent of conditions, you know, nothing to complain about, nothing to, you know, and kind of, but also at the same time as that, I still had all these insecurities and all these like issues about like, you know, anxiety and attachment and like loneliness and, you know, my own psychological stuff I hadn't sorted through. So like I had this big, you know, opening, but I hadn't gone through all of the messy inner work of therapy, or I hadn't gone through, you know, I hadn't sorted out a lot of my insecurities yet, you know, and so it was interesting. I was in this, and it's similar to what you described, like in this place where I was being driven a little by insecurity and also driven a little bit by this kind of ultimate Buddhist, you know, perspective on things, and they got kind of muddled, you know, for a while, where it was like, I want to prove myself, like I want to prove how, you know, kind I can be. I want to prove to other people how good of a person I really am, because in high school I did things that I regretted and people pointed it out, and now I want those people to see, you know, that how just pure I am, like how golden I am, you know, like I'm just like, I have no care for myself. I'm just like a selfless like being, and like, don't you see, you know, like, and it's like kind of like paradoxical like thing.
Yeah, it's really strange, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really weird because it doesn't, but it's like a really real experience at the same time though. Like, you know, it's like, as much as it kind of sounds silly in retrospect or like from someone else's perspective, that's a phase of the practice I feel like people go through, and it's just very real when you're in it, you know? Like, it's just like, you know, you're having this, it's just such an intense experience to come to like awareness, like awareness of awareness for the first time, like lucidity of awareness, and like, and come to understand like impermanence and like these things in an experiential way. Like that's huge. And like I feel like when that shit first hits the fan, it's just like kind of overwhelming, and it's hard to process, and you don't know what to, you know, how to be and how to in the world yet, you know, after coming, you know, going through that experience. And it takes a while to learn to like be normal, you know, like to be like a normal person, you know, and that, you know, you both are the source of awareness that we all are, and you're not separate, but also you're just an ordinary guy too, you know, like it's like a both hand, you know, and we're all in it, and there's no, and enlightenment doesn't exist. I think that was something that I had to learn, like ultimately, you know, it's not, or it doesn't exist as a thing out there that you can attain to or acquire or possess, you know.
One of the things that I did as well was, when I was still here, like I had this one friend who I was quite close to, but because like he was like, you know, like girls like chased after him.
Can't relate.
Yeah, he and like he was like a scholar. He was super smart, and like he was super good at soccer as well. And like I was always like jealous to a certain extent of like what he was and what I was, and I feel like that rift like kinda kept us from like being closer.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like we're in like the same friend group and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just like call them.
Yeah.
And I just like tell them everything. Like,
Yeah.
hey yo, I was like super jealous of you back then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I just found that there was always this like ego in the way, and I just thought that there didn't have to be this ego in the way anymore.
Yeah.
And like for anything for that matter. And when I went to Singapore, I wrote letters to like a bunch of my friends, basically sending out like requests for validation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can really. Well, I feel like it's also like there's this period of in the practice, and I talked about this also with my teacher Will, and he called it like atoning for your sins a little bit, or like it's like it's like Christians have a way of actually talking about this, and I feel like there's like parallels in all the different paths in a way, and like I think the way the Christians put it is that process of atoning for your sins, and I think that's a very real spiritual process. Like some of it can be motivated by insecurity. In my case, I can say that definitely that was a factor, but like in trying to seek validation, but some of it was also really genuine like remorse for things and a real reckoning with what I had done, the harm that I had caused to other people in whatever way, not that I've killed people or anything, but but in emotional ways, and like what harm I've caused to other beings, and like it was a very real like process of atoning for my sins. And I would tell people, I just say, sorry, I was a dick, and I was just like but something was beautiful about that process, even though it was painful. And but eventually I think there's also like an overcorrection element to it, where from my memory, like I kind of went a little too far for a while, where it was like, okay, now all of a sudden, because I did harm to other people, I'm not going to have self-respect anymore. Like I'm just going to let other people walk all over me, to kind of make up for it, sort of like not setting boundaries, not having, a sense of like when somebody else is doing something wrong, and sometimes that's the case, and so it was like this period of like I said before, like kind of like with the tuning of the strings metaphor, like of just going a little too far on the other side of the pendulum, and then finding that place of balance where it was like, okay, it's possible, there are always two actors in a situation, and it's always more complex than it's my fault or theirs, and it took a whole process of going from the it's your fault to it's my fault to like finding like reality a little bit,
So do you think there's any people or practitioners who have this like permanent state of like bliss?
Like permanent, like in a like that it doesn't come and go.
Yeah.
Like
I mean like the Buddha state, I guess. Buddha state was, I assume, was kind of like that.
Yeah, I personally just don't believe that.
Yeah,
I don't believe in Buddhahood in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I feel pretty strongly about that too, actually. I feel like the essence of the practice as it has been put to me by people who know a lot more than I do, who have been practicing for much longer than me, like my teacher and like some of the more senior like teachers who I've heard or talked to before, like I think all of them come across like all of them communicate that you still have like personal issues, and you still have unpleasant and pleasant feelings, and you still have insecurities even, and anxieties, and relational issues, and and there's just no end to that. It's just like the human condition, but that the meditation practice really allows you to be with the full experience of your humanity, even the unpleasant aspects of it, in a way that's accepting and a kind of an embrace of your humanity. And to me, that feels like the essence of what Buddhahood is to accept that we're all human, and in a way, accepting those parts of ourselves that are vulnerable and can allow them to, I think, dissipate a little bit to the degree where they're not as overwhelming, and they're kind of like the waves are smaller a little bit, or there's a feeling of like more of existing more in the space of contentment. Like I can buy that, but I think that like, but I don't believe there's any end to like unpleasantness or any end to even insecurity or even getting caught up or even, you know, like I don't believe there's an end to suffering, a full end to it. I think there's an alleviation of it, but like, who knows, maybe there are people in caves who who are there, or maybe the Buddha was there, but
Yeah.
but to me to believe that almost feels like in contrast to the actual essence of what the practice is about to me,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
because I really want to embrace my full humanity and not, you know, I don't want to be perfect. Like that doesn't even sound appealing. You know? Like, yeah.
But it's sort of like being perfect, knowing that you're imperfect.
Mm.
Like I think that's perfection in itself. If that makes sense.
I like that. I dig that. Yeah. Mm. What is your attitude? What is your view on it?
To be honest, I don't know. I feel that it's possible that teachers would tell their students that there is no like full like eradication of suffering to stop them from having like an end goal in mind, you know, because like that's like counterproductive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like if you're comfortable with what you said, like your humanity, your imperfections, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than good enough.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I guess as I've practiced, like I've noticed changes in the way I relate to anxiety and the way I relate to unpleasant thoughts and emotions, but I really haven't noticed a reduction in the shift has all been in how I relate to it and not in the content as much. Almost like I just kind of like am almost more aware of like that it's like sometimes I just get anxious, you know? It's like, or sometimes life's just unpleasant. And there's almost this real like peace and beneath that of just like, oh yeah, you know, that's just like the way it is, you know? Like, but it's like a subtle kind of peace. It's not like a peace that's like, oh, I never experience it, you know? Yeah.
I think that's a decent place to end off.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Had a great conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for setting it up.